That's up before practice. That's
Who's texting you?
Roddy.
Oh, Roddy. What a guy. Got Mike, Adam, there's one right there.
Well, Jake, wanted to get some more thoughts from you on the way you've been able to substitute. And you've talked about the pace and, telling guys, hey, if you need a break, you're going to get a break, we'll get you back in there. But when you are substituting at the rate that you've been doing that, what are the challenges just kind of keeping track of where you are and who needs to come in, who needs to sit? Like, how do you navigate that during a game?
Yeah, that's takes a whole staff to do that, certainly. But I think a lot of that is feel and kind of instincts. And the way our guys are playing, they're playing really, really hard. And sometimes it's obvious when you see guys needing a break.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, you're evaluating specifically what your team needs. You're also evaluating who's on the floor for them. And you're evaluating, what have we practiced from a lineup standpoint. So there's a lot of different thoughts that go into that. So I think you got to trust your instincts, but our staff's providing great input in that regard. But we had some unique lineups last game, and some of that was just, I talked to the staff part of the way through the game and felt like, hey, we could, be prepared because we could do this. If it comes up, we may go with it. And we hadn't really practiced. I think we had Evan, Zed, and Felix together,
Right.
For a stretch. So just felt like rebounding's been so important for us and the physicality on defense, and felt like that game called for something like that.
How much of that, like you said, are you able to actually practice? And how much of that is like, hey, maybe we haven't gone over this, but we trust that you can go out there and you can do this, because I'm sure you can't plan for every single possibility as the game unfolds. How much can you practice that, and how much of it does have to be just on the fly, trusting that your guys can adapt to a situation?
Yeah, I think more of it is trusting them and their ability to adapt to the situation. But part of this time of year, specifically, and we've spoken about who the mentors to me have been, right, in my career. So I'm leaning on just things that I've seen work, and certainly, Coach Holtman's been really influential in that. But we can't over practice right now either.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to, there has to be a freshness physically and mentally come game day. We're practicing hard in things, but there isn't enough time, in my opinion, to cover everything in all the scenarios. So obviously you gotta trust guys. It's our job to help them be in position to succeed. But in that case, we went to an offense that was simple at that time with that lineup, and one that guys could be comfortable in, and I think to some degree didn't overcoach, in that situation.
So just obviously, you had some hiccups in the transition defense against Michigan State, but the half-court defense felt like a huge step from the Minnesota game. Just how replicable is that going forward, and what'd you like in that area that you saw?
Yeah, there were certainly some issues at times in the transition defense, but Michigan State is elite in that area. So I felt like we did some things really well in regards to just limiting their opportunities. And I know the points they got in transition were still kind of high, but it certainly could have been a lot worse. As far as the half court goes, I even going back to the Minnesota game, I felt like our half court defense was really good for stretches. We just didn't finish plays with a rebound or loose ball, or maybe at the end of the shot clock assignment. Against Michigan State, we grew from that, and we were significantly better. And listen, in order to win moving forward, we have to be consistent in that area. So we talked a lot about that post Minnesota and through film and practice, and our guys deserve a ton of credit for making the adjustment.
This, I know, it's a focus on one day, one game at a time, but also, having something to play for is helpful for teams too. Has there been any discussion about, making a run to the NCAA tournament here? You guys maybe aren't completely out of the picture, but it's kind of a narrow road.
Yeah, I think as long as there's a Big Ten tournament, we're not out of the picture.
Right.
And I think our guys, have done a great job in the last couple of weeks, not, looking too far ahead, being in the moment, but we've also talked about each opportunity as it's presented itself. And listen, tomorrow night is a huge opportunity. It's an NCAA tournament team. It's a really good team coming into our building, a team that beat us once already this year. So there's plenty of motivational elements to this game, and we're not shying away from whatever that reality may be. But we're not spending a lot of time and energy on talking about some of these what if scenarios. It's more just focusing on handling this opportunity as best as we possibly can, and then we'll prepare for the next one after that. But from the since kind of this has happened, and this adversity that our guys are going through right now these last couple of weeks, they've been really good at just staying focused on one day at a time.
And then last one from me, going off of that, you talk about this opportunity. What corrections have you made since the Nebraska game in terms of perimeter defense? Because obviously that's something that hurt you guys in Lincoln last time.
Yeah, well, I think Nebraska certainly has, probably 5 different players that are capable of scoring 20 or more points on a given night. I mean, they have some real offensive firepower, and but our defense is improved. We talked about yesterday, they're playing really well, and they're a really good team, and so are we. And we're not the same team we were at that time. Now, either are they, but we need to continue to be about the stuff that we've been about these last kind of couple of weeks, and guarding the ball, keeping the ball in front, ball screen. Our ball screen defense all of that's going to be really, really important, and we need to guard the 3-point line. I mean, they shot it extremely well, at their place against us, and some of that was some things and some breakdowns we had. Some of it was them just making some really, really hard shots. But yeah, our perimeter defense is going to be important, absolutely.
I was chatting with Darius Garland yesterday about his commitment, his recruitment, all that. He said when he committed, he teared up. We saw the tears after the Purdue game, and I'm just wondering, whether it's public or private, what is it about these big moments that brings that reaction from him?
Yeah, Darius and I maybe have some conflicting, I don't know if we fully agree. I think he might have teared up a little bit too. No, I'll never forget sitting there and him deciding he wanted to, come play for us at Vanderbilt. And, recruiting it's hard. And we were able to really build a connection during that recruiting process. And, I think we built such a relationship that it was an exciting time. For me, I think I've tried to do this specifically and really everything in coaching with a great deal of passion, and I'm not sometimes that passion comes out in different ways, and I don't have a problem sharing that. That's just who I am. And we've had last couple of weeks, we've had some what I would say certainly calls for some emotional moments. And Darius is great. I'm so happy for him, his family, what he's been able to accomplish. And he's just getting started. In as good as he is, on the court, I guess I can't call him a kid anymore because he's a grown man, but he's an even better person. And I'll never forget being at the draft, hearing his name called, especially at that time. My wife and I knew we were going to be at Ohio State, and he gets to come to Cleveland. That moment was awesome. But yeah, when he committed, it was probably because his mom or dad started it and hugged me. That's probably when the tears maybe started a little bit.
I know you talked about Jameson on Monday, but could you give us an update on kind of where he stands for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think Jameson's progressing well, and you know we'll see as it gets a little closer. But I don't anticipate any issues there. But he's worked. He deserves a ton of credit. You guys didn't get to see it, but we stayed on the road. He worked so hard to try to come back. It was impressive. I mean, he and our trainer Tony, who's done an unbelievable job. Like they were like best friends, inseparable. It seemed like when you saw one, the other was right there for those kind of 48 hours. And it just felt like for Michigan State, we just didn't quite have enough time.
Chris talked throughout the season as struggles were happening about Bowen and his three-point shooting, because some of the guys have talked about what he does in practice. I think you even mentioned at one point you'd like to see him get more minutes, but he continues to not get consistent minutes. And I've been asked a few times, like, why isn't he playing more? I don't have a good answer. Is there things that he doesn't do that maybe we don't see, or things that we should see that are keeping him from playing more, especially as you've opened up the rotation?
Yeah, I think, specifically last game wanted to give him some opportunity because Jameson wasn't in there, and that certainly. But listen, Bowen can really shoot, and I think the impressive thing is specifically in the last probably couple months he's really grown in some of the other areas that he needed to grow to. He's gotten physically stronger. Our strength coach Quaden Banks has done a great job with our guys, and he's another example of a guy who's gotten stronger and he's moving a little better. And I think Bowen, as he's gotten a little more experience, it's helped him just, with his basketball instincts too. And so he's done a great job staying ready. I anticipate him, making some big shots, and knocking down some shots throughout the rest of this season. Some of this is just purely the flow of the game and trying to determine on the fly what exactly we need in that moment. And I think his defense has improved. And like I said, his physicality has improved, which helps on the glass. But there's been times where it felt like maybe rebounding was more important, or things like that. And I'm not sitting here saying I've gotten it right all the time either. I think that's the part where and our staff has been awesome. It just like we've worked hard together to kind of process these things. But yeah, we're figuring this out a little bit too. But he's done a great job staying ready, and I know he'll continue to do that, and I anticipate him making some shots down the stretch.
Jake, the hot topic in hoops this week has been court storming since the Wake Duke game this weekend. Just wondering your thoughts. You see, we had the women's game with, Iowa and Ohio State here, where that was also an issue a month ago. But what's your thought on that? And students getting to celebrate, and just the whole, it's been going on in college basketball forever. There's some wild ideas about what should be done these days.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that, what happened at Wake Forest, like that situation, we got to find a way to prevent that, right? Like just how fast everybody got on the court, and I think people were even on the court before maybe the buzzer completely hit. I'm not smart enough or like nearly experienced enough to figure out what the perfect solution is. I think there's an element of court storming that you don't want it to entirely go away. It does seem to be happening more frequently, and maybe not quite as special as what it once was. It seemed to be a time where it was like reserved for just the elite of elite wins. And I think back to what we've had here, like, you got top three wins, like that, I think. But some of these where it might be a top 15 or top 25 team, or something like that, I would probably say, hopefully, again, those people that are much smarter will figure out a way to make it work. But I think reserving it for those really special moments, like that's something I would imagine students probably remember for a long time. You don't want to fully like remove that from the equation, but the player safety thing is real, and again, I'm sure there's a way to figure it out, but like feeling we had at our Purdue game, I mean, I wouldn't want our guys or our fans not to be able to experience that either. So, I don't know what the answer is, but I think there's certainly, we got to prevent at least what happened in that situation.
No, I get it. I like what you're saying about a code, like top 5, top 10, and you're unranked, and if not, like boom, we're gonna talk about you bad if you go and do it. But one thing about just being a few weeks into this run now, since you got the interim head coach label, from the outside it looks like it suits you well. And is any thought about 2 of your first 3 wins? You've taken down Matt Painter, who's done what he's done, and Tom Izzo, who I know Holt always spoke very highly. He's a mentor. I don't know what your relationship is with him, but just how does that make you feel about doing this and with an unknown future, but this is for me?
Well, I think it's important that like we did that. It wasn't me. It was like the people in our program, the players, our staff. I haven't fully had time to step back, and there will be a time and place to do that, to really, recognize, I think, what's been accomplished in the last couple weeks, as far as just, you mentioned Hall of Fame coaches, road win at Michigan State and the time it had been and done that. Like, I'm not trying to minimize how great those things are. We don't have time to really sit back and think about that right now. And I asked from the first day when all of this happened and all the different emotions that were going on, I asked our guys to keep the future in the future because of the opportunity that we still have left. And I'm committed to doing that too. And I have to lead by example with that. So there will be a time and place to sit down and reflect on the flight home. Me and a couple staff guys, like, we did watch that last clip of Dale's 3 about 20 times, and every time you're looking at like a different guy on the screen and seeing the reaction, and that was fun, certainly. And our guys deserve to celebrate those moments. But I'll tell you this, we practiced well yesterday. It wasn't like our guys were focused. They practiced hard. We still have a lot of opportunity left. So maybe you and I will sit down and we'll have a drink and we'll talk about sometime after the season what those meant and how it was. But right now, now's not the time, for us to do that. I think we got to stay focused on the task at hand. So I understand that's not probably the answer that people want necessarily, but I just, that's what we're doing. Our players are doing it. We got to do it. And yeah, I was more in the moment. I was thinking like, man, that's Hall of Fame Tom Izzo across the sideline. Like, that stuff it's a little surreal, to some degree. And I don't get to fully appreciate that right now, for sure. And sometime we will, but now's not the time quite yet.
You said that after the Michigan State game too, about a question. Like, I know it's not the answer you want to hear. Why? Like, where's that come from?
Yeah, well, I think to some degree, there's, people may be looking for me to speak on, my future, or speak on like these things, these stories that could exist, like a Hall of Fame coach within kind of what we're doing as a team. But I think the focus for me, I'm fighting personally to stay focused on our guys, this program, and this season. And I think the timing, there will be a time for that, I guess. And maybe I think that's what I mean when I say that there will be a time for those things and to talk about those, but now's not the time for that, because, our guys are doing a great job with it. Our staff, we have to do a great job with it. And so I think that's what I mean.
That's one more.
Yeah. Whatever you guys mean. Yeah.
Because you were talking about watching the reaction to Dale's shot, and it dawned on me that you guys haven't had a moment like that in a while, where it's just been pure joy. I mean, Purdue, obviously, that's a big win. It wasn't a buzzer beater. You had to hold on at the end a little bit, but to have a moment like that, where it's just joy, your guys are spilling out on the court. What did you see when you watched that clip over and over again? Did you have a favorite reaction? And what does that kind of moment mean to a program that has been through some tough times here recently?
Well, I had my own personal thoughts, and our guys were making fun of my reaction.
I was going to ask you about that too.
Yeah, so I explained to them, well, my initial reaction was to like, thank God, and just like, and then one of the coaches grabbed me and was saying, there's still time on the clock. So then my reaction is like, go get the guys back here. We got to, get our defense set, but going back and looking then I was thinking like, all right, Jameson, what are you thinking? And he's like, well, my adrenaline. But then you could see him get a little smarter the further he ran onto the court. And I think going all the way down the bench, like Terrence Dials, almost like dancing in place. One of our coaches, we joke with him. He's like focused on writing his notes. And then our managers say, you look at their reactions. But the joy, just the overall joy in seeing our guys celebrate, like that stuff is so powerful. And even when you go back and watch, it just like makes you feel good that these guys get to experience that. And I think even just the energy that our guys had when we landed on the bus, talking and laughing and joking, like those things, like I'm so happy for our guys. I think first and foremost, they've earned to be able to feel that way. But it's though in the moment, it's certainly you're not numb by any means to feeling those like in the moment you talked about. But yeah, there were a lot of difference. We had some guys running faster to go get Dale than it seems like we might be running in practice a couple times. We might have to evaluate that a little bit. But no, it's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, so you talk a lot about how it's not just you that's creating success, but it's more like a team effort all around. And you talk about like the coaching staff too. So I'm just kind of curious, like what are some of the conversations that you're having with your staff, and like why is it really meshing so well right now with like you and your staff?
Well, we've had great chemistry all year, and so, and listen, I know I've talked about it, but the collection of experience on our staff is really high. You have former head coaches, you got, all different levels of college basketball, former players, but the chemistry of our staff it's not to say how hard it's been, because I think we all love Holt, and he's meant so much to all of us. And so we've had to process this, certainly, but we've stayed together. And I think that's important. I think our players see that. And we haven't sat back and changed, staff, like part of my job, I feel like, is to like create space for everybody on our staff to be their best, and we got some really talented guys. So, but we've worked together. We communicate a ton. We meet regularly about practice each day, and there's input coming from a lot of different directions. And everybody, the most impressive thing, because of the uncertainty surrounding all of us too, and what's next, is the most important thing is like. You guys have heard me say it, but they're doing the same thing. They're focused on serving these players in this program as well as we possibly can through the rest of the season. And I've been so impressed with how everyone in our program and our staff certainly needs to be highlighted for that, how they've been able to do that. Because I would imagine human nature would not be the case. But our staff cares about our players so much, and you're seeing that shine through. And we got some high level individuals on that staff, and I think the chemistry's been there from day one, so that part's been easy.
And then one more question. Just talking about Devin, just his overall improvement. So I remember like a few weeks ago, Ronnie was up here and he was saying like back in like the preseason, Devin couldn't even like run up and down the floor, like his conditioning just wasn't there. So how much of that improvement, I guess, is his conditioning, and how much like is that mostly why he's improving, or is it more like mental or physical? Like where do you see that like of his overall improvement?
I think all of those things have been a factor. I think we're starting to see the game slow down for him a little bit, both sides of the ball. And, you know, Devin's had to, this year was always going to be a little bit of a transition period for him because of, you know, he's shifting some positionally from kind of who he was as a high school player to, you know, to who he's going to become, you know, in college. And he's always been tough. He's always had good feel. And so, you know, some of it is, it's we've been spoiled here the last couple of years with some of the what freshmen have been able to accomplish, and that's not the norm. And everybody's journey is different, and I think Devin has figured out these last kind of 6 weeks how to really run his race well. And so he's playing with a great deal of confidence. We have a great deal of belief in him. I hope he feels that. I think he feels that. And listen, he has been critical in some of these games. Obviously, his numbers against Michigan State were impressive. His efficiency, the timeliness of some of his baskets. I still go, like, the most impressive thing he did though was taking the ball out of bounds in that moment, in my opinion. So that to me showed not just the conditioning improvement or the physicality improvement or things like that. It showed just the game slowing down for him, and he's a talented player. So once that really happens, like, there's something special to be had there. And he's worked and he's earned the right, you know, to improve and play like he has. So I think he's got a really, really bright future, and hopefully some really bright moments, you know, here the rest of this season.
Thank you, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Jake.
You guys going to the women's game tonight?
It's gonna be a good one, right? I mean, they already got the 1 seed, don't they?
Yep.
They can win the outright.
Coach